So it's not me that's being repetitious. It is what is going on in society continues to favor the people who have the wealth and the power.
This past weekend, Bernie Sanders was on NBC's Meet the Press with Chuck Todd, who's always a fun guy. So I got two clips here to show you. The first clip, Chuck Todd, of course, asks a stupid question. Watch.
You're getting a lot of advice these days from a lot of friends. The New York Times story earlier this week was filled with a lot of it. I want to show you an excerpt, a deeper challenge confronting his aides and supporters. After nearly 4 decades of running and usually winning iconoclastic campaigns on his own terms, he is deeply reluctant to change his approach. And you've had a lot of these are people very much supporters of you who are saying it sounds too much like 2016. You have to rejigger things a little bit. Oh, be more personable. How are you accepting this advice?
Well, look, two things. People say, Bernie, you're repetitious. You are talking about the rich getting richer and 40 million people living in poverty. You are talking about so many old people who cannot afford their medicine and so forth and so on. You know what, Chuck? Here's a promise I will make to you. When the poor get richer and the rich get poorer, when all of our people have health care is a right, when we are leading the world in the fight against climate change, you know what? I will change what I am saying. So it's not me that's being repetitious. It is what is going on in society continues to favor the people who have the wealth and the power, while all over this country people are working 2 or 3 jobs. And I understand that. I keep hammering away at that issue because I believe that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we don't need 45 million people struggling with student debt. Kids can't afford to go to college. Those are the issues I will continue to talk about, and those are the issues we'll win on.
All right, so I thought that was a fantastic answer from Bernie Sanders. Fantastic answer to a dumb question. How many times do I have to talk about this? So I did a video recently on this similar kind of thing, actually with Chuck Todd. So Marcos Melitzis, the founder of Daily Kos, was on Chuck Todd's show talking about, Bernie Sanders is using the same strategy he did 4 years ago. Why is he using the same strategy? This isn't a board game. This is real life. Bernie's answer there was perfect. It's not him that's repetitious. It's the issues in society that are repetitious. So in order to deal with them, it's still the same approach. You have the wealthy and the powerful at the top of society, continuing to hoard all the wealth and all the power. It is a systemic issue. So it's not even just the issue of, wealthy people being greedy, because that's always going to exist. It's a system that allows that kind of greed to continue while millions don't have health care, while you have public schools that are underfunded, infrastructure that's falling apart. I mean, climate change policy that is nowhere near adequate enough. Go on and on and on and on. The reason why Bernie's approach is the same is because the problems are the same. But Chuck Todd and these cable news shows always frame politics in this horse race mentality, in this team sport or board game mentality where it's, they're using this strategy to get these people. And the perfect example of all this is what the news does every time the primaries are over. You have a candidate in the primary, and then they always talk about, this is now the nominee of the Democratic Party, and now what they have to do is they have to now pivot towards the center. Just like we're all just playing games. Of course they have to pivot now. Everything they said in the primary, they were just saying that in order to get votes. They were just lying the whole time. But that's not what the news tells you. They just act like, pivoting is normal. Of course, they're going to pivot. Yeah, but pivoting means that they were just lying for the past year about what they believe in, about what they're going to fight for. Pivoting now means, I was lying to you the whole time. Now I have to pivot towards the center, or really what that actually means is more right-wing, in order to appeal to the big donors, to get all that money in so I can raise all this money to win the election and then eventually do nothing. I mean, you see this every election cycle, all about the pivot, without analyzing how absurd the pivot is. Politics, again, is not a game. These are real people's lives, yet cable news continues treating it like it's a game. I want to get to one more clip here where Bernie comments on the Democratic Party infighting.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was a volunteer in your campaign, she was very upset with Nancy Pelosi, and she said, when these comments first started, I kind of thought that she was keeping the progressive flank at more of an arm's distance in order to protect more moderate members, which I understood. But the persistent singling out, it got to a point where it was just outright disrespectful, the explicit singling out of newly elected women of color. Is this part of this bigger disruption that you helped lead 4 years ago, where the party is just having growing pains, or what do you make of this dispute?
Well, Chuck, this is what I think. I think it goes without saying that the future of our country and the future of the Democratic Party rests with young people. And I'm very proud, by the way, in virtually every poll that I have seen, we are winning people under 45 or 50 years of age and younger.
You do well of younger voters in our poll as well. Yeah.
Okay. And what Alexandria and other young women and women of color are saying, we have got to reach out to young people. We've got to hear the pain of the working class of this country. And that is causing some political disruption within the leadership of the Democratic Party. And let me give you one example where I am very concerned. I have helped lead the effort to expand community health centers in this country. And right now there's legislation in the House, the Democratic House, to cut in real inflation accounted for dollars community health centers by 20%. Unacceptable. So I support, Alexandria's and the other women's desire to bring more people, especially young people, working class people, into the Democratic Party. That is the future of the Democratic Party.
Do you think the speaker's being too tough on them?
I think a little bit. I think you cannot ignore the young people of this country who are passionate about economic and racial and social and environmental justice. You got to bring them in, not alienate them.
So this is exactly right. And really, it is the only reality that exists. AOC, Rashida Tlaib, the other Justice Democrats, these politicians that aren't taking any big donor money, raise money off grassroots support, win their elections based off volunteers and grassroots support, grassroots donations, individual contributions. This is the future of the Democratic Party. This is the future of politics in America. Representatives that actually represent people. I mean, how crazy is that? So what the Democratic Party is, the current Democratic Party with the leadership, they represent the old way of doing things. Bowing to corporations, continually giving in to right-wing positions, conservative positions on policy issues. I mean, you saw Bernie mention one of the issues there, but even the fact that the party right now as a whole isn't fighting for Medicare for all. I mean, just one of many examples of how the Democratic Party, even though the polling shows that the vast majority of Democratic voters and a majority of Americans in general support Medicare for all, even though the polling shows that, the Democratic Party is still not fighting for it. This is not a party, at least the leadership does not represent the average person. AOC and the Justice Democrats are completely changing that. And it may be it may start off slow. There's only 4 or 5 or 6 of them right now in the House. But there's going to be more elections and more and more and more. And these corporate Democrats are going to be continue getting primaried out and replaced by representatives that actually represent real voters. What Bernie Sanders is speaking to, what AOC speaks to, is a reality in the country that people have recognized that their politicians are bought. And the only way to change things is to primary out those politicians, even if they're Democrats, and replace them with better Democrats. And right now, that's what Bernie supports, and that's what the Justice Democrats are trying to get done.